Welcome to the unknown, a place where ghosts, cryptids, and extraterrestrials are sought. This is where you'll find answers to questions about what lurks in the dark. This is Periscope Uncensored.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Periscope Uncensored here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Alabama. I am Clarissa Vasquez, and riding shotgun this evening, as always, is the man formerly known as Jax. I've been waiting all week to say that.
I'm sure you have. Hey, my name is White.
You were breaking out there a little bit. You want to let's try that again.
Hello, everybody.
Okay, you're still breaking out. As always, we're having some technical issues tonight, folks. I don't know if it's because of the weather or just a really poor connection. I know here in Colorado, the weather is awful. It is raining and the wind is blowing and it's terrible. But what my fabulous co-host was trying to say is earlier in the week, and for those that follow his fan page, you're already aware of this change, but he decided to ditch the pseudonym.
Yay.
So, yay! Oh, that was clear. Do you want to try the intro again?
Hello, everybody. My name is Joe White.
That's right. So riding shotgun this evening is the sprinkles on my donut, Mr. Joe White. And we have got a fantastic show lined up for you tonight, folks. When we come back from our first break, we're going to have Lori Gum on the show with us, and she is the co-founder of the Queer Paranormal Society. And I was actually shocked when we started announcing the guest and who was going to be on. We post it in different paranormal groups and on different paranormal pages and stuff. And there were some people that actually, on Facebook, when you can like or love or laugh or, post a wow face or a thumbs up or whatever. There were people on some of the announcements that actually posted the angry face when we announced that we were going to have Lori on as a guest tonight. I'm really, really disappointed in that because I think that Lori's going to have some really good things to say. And I think that she's going to be able to shine a different light on the subject of paranormal investigation. We're going to find out, how her organization, contributes to their community, how they benefit their community. And if, certain aspects of their organization, if that aids or hinders some of the data that they collect. So I'm excited to have Lori on the show tonight. And I know you are too, Joe.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting.
Yeah. And so I'm going to, while we're talking, I'm going to pop into the WBHM chat room. And if you've got questions for Lori or for Joe or myself, feel free to post them in the chat room. If you are not in our chat room, I encourage you to come on over to WBHM-DB.com and click the live chat button. We've got a full chat room tonight already. We've got some loyal listeners in there. We've got Brenda and Carl and former Periscope guests Cuvid and Vern are in our chat room tonight. And so, and Cuvid has already commented on the fact that you have ditched the pseudonym.
Well, yeah, I knew I was going to get flack back from Mr. Cupid.
Yeah. Well, Cupid has known you forever as Jax, and I think
Exactly.
he'll still call you Jax, probably until the day you guys die. But you know, you and I had some pretty lengthy discussions as to whether or not to, you were going to keep the pseudonym, keep the alias, or just be yourself. And my personal take on it is, as long as you've got nothing to hide, there is absolutely nothing wrong with being yourself.
True. Don't worry, Q. I'm still Jax. Deep down inside. Always will be.
Yeah. And so now they're kind of having a measuring contest in the chat room. Vern's going, I knew Jax before Cupid. And yes, Vern, you are hearing Bubba in the background. I've been gone for a couple of days. I just got home like 2 minutes before the show started. And for our loyal listeners that that know anything about the show, know anything about me, or know anything about my cat, Bubba Lou, if I leave the house, even to go get the mail, to walk, to the end of my driveway to pick up the mail, when I come back in the house, I get yelled at. And the longer I've been gone, the longer and louder I get yelled at by the cat. And so, I've been gone for a couple of days. And my 2 weeks of hell started yesterday, where I am triple booked. And I'm going to be driving all over the state of Colorado for the next 2 weeks. And so I literally just walked in the door before the show started. And so now I'm getting yelled at. So yes, you are hearing my cat yell at me while we're on the air, because I've been gone and he thinks that he needs to punish me. That sounded a little Frankensteinish there. And I know you can deliberately do a better Frankenstein than that.
Oh, of course I can.
But you're not going to do it.
Oh, was that what?
Yeah, there you go. That was an invitation.
Yeah. But I'm feeling much better this week.
I'm glad. Last week you were really sick when we were on the air.
Yeah, it's it was weird because I was starting to feel better, and then all of a sudden, I was taking mega doses of vitamin C, and just all of a sudden, just clear out of the blue, it just like came back with a vengeance. It's like, your butt is mine. It's like, oh, no.
Well, remember that happened with me when I had it a month ago. And I think it is the same bug that I had last month. I mean, it's sure acting like the same bug that I had last month. And it was about a week after I first got sick, I started feeling better and going, okay, I'm over the worst of it. And then it just came back and nailed me again. And, knocked me on my butt is what it did. But I'm glad you're feeling better.
Yeah, me too. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah. And, unfortunately, the deeper radio voice is going to go the way of the dodo because, you're not as congested as you were. Sorry, ladies.
Oh, no, see, because I can still do it.
Oh, you could still do the radio voice. Okay, ladies, swoon time.
So what's going on in the paranormal world? Anything new? Anything exciting?
Well, we were supposed to have an investigation last week on my birthday. at the Frontier Historical Museum in Glenwood Springs. And unfortunately, because of that bomb cyclone that came through Colorado and tore up a lot of the Midwest and, and the Great Plains and everything, we had to reschedule it. Because my two farthest investigators are 6 hours apart. They live 6 hours apart. And where we were going to investigate is semi-central, between the two, but not really. And so because so many of my investigators would have had to travel and everything, we just decided to err on the side of caution, and we've rescheduled it for April. So I was a little bummed about that because I really wanted to chase ghosts on my birthday, but I didn't get to. And we actually, we've got that rescheduled for April, but some big news in the paranormal field. There is a new book out. I believe it launched on St. Patrick's Day. And it was written by a good friend of ours, and actually a good friend of the network, even though his show is on a different network. He's a good friend of the network, Reverend Sean Whittington. And as soon as I can pull up the page, I'll give you the title of the book. I've already ordered a copy, and we are going to have him on Periscope to talk about the book in April, unfortunately, or I'm sorry, in May. We just couldn't get schedules to gel and line up any sooner than May. But he's going to be a guest in May. His new book that just came out is called God, Ghosts, and the Paranormal Ministry.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. And so I'm excited to read that book because it may put my manuscript to a screeching halt. I've been working on Ghosts and the Bible for 8 years. And if it's the same content, then I'm going to have to either revamp the manuscript or just scrap it all together. But the book came out on St. Patrick's Day, and it's a true story inspired by spirit and divine intervention. And he, let's see, I'm trying to read here what the book is about. He is a paranormal investigator in the Las Vegas area, and he's also got a radio show. If you guys have listened to the Paranormal Pride with Denise Pridemore, she's a regular on his show, just as I've been on his show frequently. But he says, do not read the book alone and do not read it at night, and remember to say your prayers before you go to bed, is what he says about the book. So it's going to be cool, to see what that book is all about. And we're going to have the Rev, as he likes to be called, on the show. I think it is May 2nd. If I can get the calendar to pop up here real quick. Yep, May 2nd. He's going to be here on Periscope. We're going to be talking about his book. So definitely tune in for that.
Wow, that's exciting. Oh, here we go with the deep voice. just clicked right on.
Kind of an instinct thing now, huh? Kind of a habit. Is that what you're telling me?
No, it's like if I relax just a little bit, vocal cords super relaxed, and then just all of a sudden it gets like really deep.
Uh-huh. So, and the chat room, because you did post in the chat room that you were going to keep your handle in chat as Jax. Everybody they're all jumping up and down. I think Cuvid's about to do a backflip. because you're going to remain Jax in the chat room. So for
Yeah. But you know what? I just figured that I was just going to use my real name instead of, yeah. Lou Rawls. Yes, almost Lou Rawls.
Almost Lou Rawls, little Barry White-ish.
Yes.
Yeah, we're going to have to teach you how to sing as Barry White or Lou Rawls. Or Isaac Hayes, the late Isaac Hayes.
It's not unusual to be loved by anyone.
That's Tom Jones.
Yeah. Yes. Yes, Q, you're old and set in your ways. Sorry. Yes, you're older than ancient dirt in Egypt. Ancient Egypt, yes.
Yes. Brenda says you are pure vocal gold.
Yes. I tried. But that's like, now I'm really dating myself because we're talking like pure gold. We're talking AM radio.
I thought that was solid gold. Now I just dated myself. And it's funny because, as you and most of our listeners know, the radio in my car is permanently tuned to Hair Nation on satellite radio. Because I am a hair metal lover. Oh, gosh, don't get me started. But they are doing Motley Crue week because the Motley Crue movie comes out on Netflix tomorrow. And, listening to, some of the older Crue songs and listening to them talk about, the early days of the band and, before they made it big, before they were headlining arenas and stuff. It's like, oh God, I feel old now.
Right.
They're talking about, having hit records, and if you say the word, record to a millennial, they're going to think like a file folder or something. They don't fully grasp the concept, that a record was something on vinyl that you had to put on a turntable and play, and it had pops and clicks and white noise, and that's when music was good.
Yep. And there's nothing like hearing music on vinyl. It's totally different than on CD.
Yeah. CD gives you a clearer sound, but, hearing it on vinyl, it's nostalgic. You see the things on Facebook going, like and share if you remember what this is. And I always love the one that has the picture of the little plastic insert that you put on the 45 so it would fit on the turntable.
Yes.
And, people that are, younger than 40 are going, what the heck is that?
Well, someone posted on Facebook and it came up on my feed. I don't know if you saw it too, but it was like, please comment if you know what this is. And that's exactly what that was.
Yeah. Yeah,
it was that little
crazy
star thing for the 45.
Yeah, the little plastic star insert, that you popped in the 45 so it would fit on the turntable. But, well, on that note, it is time for our first break of the evening. But when we come back, we're going to have Lori Gum on the line with us. So stay tuned, folks. You're listening to Periscope Uncensored on WBHM Digital Broadcasting, and we will be right back.
Son of a...
Hey, son.
Mother...
Son? What are you doing?
Hey, Mom. I'm getting ready to listen to Periscope Uncensored.
By expanding your vocabulary.
Well, it is uncensored.
Son, the uncensored part of Periscope Uncensored is Jax and I getting down to brass tacks with all aspects of the paranormal. There's no fluff on our show.
So, no off-color commentary?
I didn't say that.
Awesome! What?
Son?
I just hit my head.
Oh boy. I'll go get you an ice pack. Catch Periscope Uncensored Thursday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern, only on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
Welcome back to Periscope Uncensored on WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Alabama. I am Clarissa Vasquez. Riding shotgun this evening, as always, is the man formerly known as Jax, Mr. Joe White.
Hello, everybody.
And folks, we have got a great guest on the line tonight. As we mentioned earlier in the show, we're really excited to talk to this lady. She is the co-founder of the Queer Paranormal Society. And, again, we've got so many questions that we want to ask her and so many things that we want to learn about. And we know that she loves nothing better than talking about this. So please join us in welcoming Miss Lori Gum to the show. Hi, Lori.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Oh, it's our pleasure. So for our listeners who are not familiar with you or the Queer Paranormal Society, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and, and Queer Paranormal and, where you guys are based out of and really what inspired you to start this organization?
Sure. It's kind of a long, fun story. I was actually, there is a LGBTQ community center here in Columbus, been here for 35 years, called Stonewall Columbus. And I became, in 2011, the Pride coordinator for the big Pride Festival here, which is huge. And I stayed on as program coordinator. Mm-hmm. Well, in about 2015, I was invited on a random ghost hunting trip with two lesbians, and they didn't particularly do, queer ghost hunting. We just happened to know each other. And I went, and I took my associate at Stonewall, Shane McClellan, with me. We went to Licking County Jail here and had our first amazing ghost hunting experience. I got grabbed, and Shane got grabbed, and we learned how to use dowsing rods and EVPs and spirit boxes and all of that. And so Shane and I started going on ghost hunts ourselves. It was generally a straight population. Mm-hmm. And on the many car rides back at 5:00 in the morning, we started sort of talking between ourselves, wondering why everyone always assumed that ghosts were straight. Because if we were in a group, and let's say we found what we thought was a female entity, the next question would automatically be, what was your husband's name? Did you have a husband? Did you have children? And mm-hmm. Shane and I, coming from the perspective of being, a lesbian and a gay man, that we just thought that was a little presumptuous. And we also began to realize that many of the places where you find ghosts, insane asylums and prisons, actually were where we were. A lot of our history of, the people that dared to love ended up in institutions and ended up in prisons. And we had many gay people and queer people working in theaters and opera houses. So we thought, wow, these are the places we're going to, and this is where we were historically. So it only made sense to us. We started a queer ghost hunting group. And we started it at Stonewall, and we brought in community members and with a wide, diverse spectrum of gender identities and sexual orientations. And started finding queer entities. And what we would do also is that we had a historian. Katie Detro was our queer ghost hunting historian. We would do 18, 20-page histories on the venues before we went to see if there were possibly any queer entities there. So we went in actually looking for often specific entities. And this grew and grew, and the community responded. And then actually we had filmmaker Stu Maddox come, and there is a YouTube series called Queer Ghost Hunters. And the first season we were at Collingwood Art Center, which was a convent. And so out of that grew, especially, and again, Shane and I started this, but we found that the group, had even bigger paranormal interests beyond just sort of typical ghost hunting. And that was really the impetus. The Queer Paranormal Society just started recently as sort of an expansion of our queer ghost hunting experience, and that we wanted to talk about other other areas of supernatural and, that kind of phenomena. And that's how we got here. So it's really been, that was 2015. It's been almost a 4-year process.
Wow. Now,
Wow.
And of course, the big question is your organization as a whole, is it accepted by the community in general, or do you guys get a lot of flack from the community? Does it impact the cases, the cases that you guys take on, or is there no impact at all?
Right. Well, we were pretty we were really well accepted by, obviously, the queer community here and by Columbus at large. We were, as a matter of fact, there's a big paper here called Columbus Alive, and we were on the cover, and actually we got cover of the year. I mean, there was a huge support from just mainstream Columbus, a lot of coverage on that. And we expected, what we were really worried about is when we started going in, and I would carry in my little gear box that had a Queer Ghost Hunter, our Queer Ghost Hunter logo on it, and we thought we might get some flack from the queer ghost hunting community or the ghost hunting community, and they wouldn't take us seriously, and going into these venues would accept us. We've had nothing but open arms, and as a matter of fact, most of the venues that we go to, you will find that either the people that own it or are running it always have a story that
Right.
they know what we're talking about. They think there possibly was a gay prisoner or a gay costume designer, and so they'll usually come forward often, I think, with things that they might not have felt comfortable sharing before. So we've had I can't think of one. When you go on, of course, what really was the test of that is when the episodes went up for Queer Ghost Hunters on YouTube, all of the comments, and of course you get your haters, haters
Right.
for everything. But in general, one of the reasons we decided, instead of making a documentary, a 2-hour documentary that's what it was originally going to be. And especially about the community interaction, because I'll tell you some cool things that happen actually with the community. We decided to put it on YouTube, particularly to reach younger people. We wanted to reach young LGBTQ people. We had trans people in our group, queer people in our group, to really let them see themselves, and to reach out to young people and try to tell them the history of the queer community without it seeming like history. And that was
Right.
really the mission of the YouTube series, was to do that. And, we would get these amazing comments from a 13-year-old in Iceland saying, there was, we had a demi-romantic trans man. I've never seen myself on screen, because we really identified, with sort of our gender identities and our sexual orientation. And it was important because people could see themselves in the spectrum, and they had never seen themselves on ghost hunting shows ever. And that was really exciting. I think not only did they enjoy the ghost hunting story and our experience, by the way, which in the series is completely unscripted. You didn't even know Stu was in the room. He shot. So what happened was in no way really scripted. But people saw themselves, and I think that was really exciting. And I think it's particularly empowering to young people to see themselves, on screen, essentially.
Absolutely. Before I founded my organization out here in Colorado, the Colorado Coalition of Paranormal Investigators, we founded that in 2004. But back in 2003, I was on the board of directors for the LGBTQ organization in Western Colorado called Western Equality. And
Cool.
yeah, and they
We have an
invite-
ally. Fantastic.
Yeah, they invited us to. They were having some weird things going on in their office, which was in a very, very historic building. It was on the second floor of an old dance hall in Grand Junction, Colorado. And they invited us in, to come in and investigate it, which of course we did. But it never occurred to me until you just mentioned it. And we may have to see if we can get back into that building, to see if maybe there, what is afflicting that building is of the LGBTQ persuasion. And, that could be what is attracting them, to that office and, causing them to, interact, particularly in that office, whereas none of the other offices in that building were being affected.
Interesting. And I think that's exactly sort of what we were going after too, is just the kind of, again, like you didn't think, this presumption that, well, of course, you just never think of beings, entities not being straight. I think it's natural. People just don't think about that. So, yeah, that's very exciting. And we would love to see, even sort of, mainstream or straight ghost hunting groups. I think we've opened their eyes too. I think they consider that now. And I think that's a good thing, just when we're thinking of everyone on a spectrum of their own authenticity. But here's one of the things that we really discussed as a group in the beginning, really deliberately, and spent a lot of time talking about, was, let's say, like, perfect example, we went into the Twin City Opera House in McConnellsville. And so when we sort of open it up, we would open up and we'd all sit in a circle and ourselves to the entities. We had to be very careful of language. We refer to ourselves as LGBTQ now or queer or whatever. So we would always explain that we were men who love men romantically and women who love women romantically, because we would realize that, let's say, these entities, from 1850, well, I'm sure, do they know what's happened in the world? Do they not? We were really cognizant of the fact that we may be talking to an entity's knowledge of the world stopped in, 1867. And I used to say to my, ghost hunting associates, I used to say, are we going to have to tell them that A, Lincoln was shot, and B, there's gay marriage? I mean, am I going to have to break all this news?
Right.
That's a lot of news, you know what I mean? So,
yeah,
but,
the slaves are free and gay marriage is legal.
That's right. That's right. So we would do these histories. Katie did a phenomenal job, and we would really sort of try to gear to be as broad in the language as we could, because, language is a very powerful thing in our community. So I think we were very aware of making sure that sort of entities knew what that meant then. So again, that was a big consideration when we went in the language to use in introducing ourselves.
Yeah, for sure. Now, you mentioned, earlier, that there are haters out there. And, which it's sad because, there are haters out there. And
I could say, I like purple, and there'd be haters too. You know what I mean?
Right.
I mean, it doesn't matter what you put out there. There's going to be haters, that, yellow's better than purple, that kind of stuff.
Right. Have you noticed at all any sort of impact with the data you guys collect, such as, the EVPs that you capture? Have you noticed any impact, based on the LGBTQ aspect of your organization and your investigations? Has that impacted your data?
Yeah, I used to have I still have, I was much more diligent about than I have been recently, but I used to have a Reverb Nation website where I would post all the EVPs that we would have, and many of them are very convincing. And I know for a fact that other, sort of more mainstream ghost hunters have listened to that. And, I think, again, the impact is because of many reasons, but, we would also generally do a report after we had sort of done a trip, and, sort of make our findings public if we could, just to let people know that, we were going out and finding these entities. As a matter of fact, one of the things I say in the series is I really thought it would be hit or miss when we started this. I really did. We found queer entities everywhere. And, really deliberate interactions between, excuse me, we use the dowsing rods a lot to get initial contact and get yes or no and find out if entities are queer or not. And we also came in contact with, we also said in the introduction that you don't have to be queer to talk to us. We're happy to talk to anybody. But that's just some of the things that I think, sort of made a difference.
Right. Now, I know a lot of investigation organizations, they collect, data that is sometimes really aggressive, and negative or even violent.
Oh, yeah.
Have you encountered any of that? Have you captured an EVP that says, get out, you blanking, blanking blank.
Yeah, we have actually. We have. And, it's funny because we thought this out so well before we even started. One of the things in our introduction also is that we say, listen, we want to talk with people who want to talk with us. We're not interested in dark entities. We're here to share and communicate with you. We don't want to scare you. We don't want you to scare us. We're very adamant about that. Another thing that people brought out about our group, and particularly see it in the series, we are interested in sharing our stories and hearing theirs. We are not interested in, walking in and being aggressive and trying to bully an entity out of the closet or out of a room. This community knows what bullying is. And I can't even watch those ghost hunting shows that are just so, they get a violent response because they go after the entities violently very often. And we really wanted to change that paradigm of ghost hunting, and we worked very hard to do that. However, we had two really interesting, no matter what, you can say that, but we had two very interesting ones. One was we had, and this is in the first season of the series, we had one of our trans men try to reach out. There was a notorious, supposedly evil Mother Superior that lived in the Toledo convent in the theater, and she sat in this very specific place. And she was notorious for throwing things at people and screaming. And really, there was a lot of EVP evidence that was on the web and stories about this Mother Superior. So Kai, our one of our trans man investigators, he really, the minute he heard about her, he really wanted to reach out to her because he said, I understand anger, and I think you're evil. I think you're misunderstood. And I want to reach out to you. So he goes out on the stage, and we're filming him, and we got everything going, and he's making this appeal to Mother Superior. So he goes up and sits in the area where she sits. And I'll tell you what, this was the scariest moment of all of my ghost hunting. He got very freaked out, and he is the shyest, most kind guy in the entire world. And he had to leave, and he got out of there. His personality changed. He turned on all of us. I'd heard of sort of transference before, where an entity could put their rage or whatever. That's exactly what happened, and was basically trying to get Kai out of there. And it was really scary. It's like, what are we going to do to get him back? And eventually she took him down, or he felt led to. There was a lot of artwork. Here's the irony too. In the convent we went to, it's now an art center. On the ground floor is the Pride office for Toledo Pride. So she actually dragged him down there, and there was artwork outside of this office that was, unity and Pride banners and all this kind of stuff. Once he went down there and saw that, he said he had this feeling of disgust. He could feel that she thought that her convent was being violated. And once he saw that, he said she left immediately, and he returned to himself. But it was very scary. And he didn't go on some ghost hunts for a while. He felt like he was being rejected by her specifically because of who he was. And it was scary. It really was. It was the first time we found an entity that really came out after sort of one of us. The other time, it's kind of funny. We were asked, Shane and I, this was outside of the group, Shane and I were asked to go to a residential house. We had two lesbians who were having horrible problems in this house that they had moved into. I mean, things were moving. There was wails in the middle of the night. They were having a horrible time. So Shane and I went down there, and we used a spirit box. I actually recorded, and I have the recordings on Reverb Nation. We found out that basically, we talked for a while, and we ascertained that this entity we thought initially really was attracted to one of the women and really wanted the other woman out, was very jealous. And so at one point I turned to one of the women and I said, just tell him to leave. And the spirit box says, F off. And it's very clear. I have the recording. You can hear F off. And then later on, there's an EVP about being an effing dyke. And so, that was very specifically geared towards, really coming out specifically against them because of their sexual orientation. Right. We found out later they moved again to Cincinnati. We went down again. They were having the same problem. And actually, we sort of concluded that it was more of a child spirit that had really attached and was feeling like this one woman was, his mother, and really felt that the woman was getting the attention he should. That's what we eventually ascertained. But, even children can use that kind of language. So, it was really about those two women being lesbians, and was very directed at that.
Wow. And
I know
on
that's
that
probably
note,
a much longer story than I wanted to hear, but
no, it's a great story, and it totally answered my question. And on that note, it is time for our next break. But when we come back, we're going to have more with Lori Gum. So stay tuned, folks. You're listening to Periscope Uncensored on WBHM Digital Broadcasting, and we will be right back. Welcome back to Periscope Uncensored on WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Alabama. I am Clarissa Vasquez, and of course my co-pilot for this evening is the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Radio Voice himself, Joe White.
Hello, everybody.
And the crowd goes wild.
Yay!
Yeah, and Lori, just to give you a little bit of backstory here, Joe's got what we call radio voice, and
yes, I can tell.
we have a lot of female listeners that tend to swoon whenever he talks. So
I can understand why. Yes, I only heard a few words, but that's all I needed. Yes.
So, Joe, I've been kind of dominating the interview. Do you have questions for Lori, or are you still thinking?
No, continue. I'm still thinking. I'll get some in.
Okay. Feel free to jump in.
Absolutely.
And yeah, Brenda says she's got jelly knees. So, and Q says that he swoons also when you talk. So, yeah. But that's Q. So
I'm sure he does.
Lori, we were talking a little bit before the break about, some of the data that you guys have compiled, and, that it's been pretty positive for the most part, and some has been a little negative. And, even my organization, we do not believe in provoking at all or being aggressive or even alluding to the fact that whomever we're communicating with may be dead. We follow the premise.
Same with us, correct.
Yeah.
Right.
It's, how would you feel if someone walked up to you and said, "When did you die?" And you're going, I'm not dead, so, if they don't know they're dead, we don't allude to.
Or someone just walked in my house and started, badgering me. I mean, it's just rude. Just, be polite like you would in normal everyday life, and you'll do okay.
Right. And, kindness attracts kindness, and, positive attracts positive, negative attracts negative, et cetera, et cetera. And so, given that, and given that you guys are such a positive organization on so many different levels, what would you say is your most compelling piece of data that you've collected to date, and whether it has any connection to the sexuality aspect of your organization or not? What's your most compelling piece of data?
I think there's a couple. And again, if you watch this first series, it's 7 episodes. The data is in those series. I mean, it's all videotaped. You can hear it. You can see the dowsing rods. You can see the electromagnet, the indicators, everything, the EMFs working. All of our data has really been recorded, and you can see it. So we were very upfront about that. So it's in real time. It couldn't be faked. You can see the dowsing rods moving at the same time. The EMF is moving, and then we put the EVPs on. We've had some extraordinarily compelling EVPs, but again, which is, I think, everybody wants really hard data with that sort of thing. And an EVP, I think, is extremely hard to refute, especially to the people in the room who knew that they didn't hear that, hear that happening at that time. Now, if you see on the series too, the videotape, the dowsing rods are just incredible how they move on response, and they always use the same. Whether the rods are together or apart, they dictate what yes or no will be. It's very compelling when you see how deliberately those dowsing rods move through all of the episodes. This is something happening again and again. This isn't a one-shot deal. These are full conversations with entities. But I would say the two most extraordinary EVPs, we were at Licking County Jail, and we were in a cell. There were 5 of us women. It was a big community hunt, 5 of us women. And we were in a cell talking with a woman. Historically, we had read about a woman who had lost her child and then ended up in this jail. And we were talking to her, and we were really saying that 4 of the women in the room were mothers, and saying, we understand what you went through. And when you play the EVP back, you can hear a woman crying. And it's profound. I got goosebumps telling you that right now. When you hear something like that, it's impossible to refute that that there's something there. It's absolutely something there. Now, the other one, this is astounding, and it happened to me personally. Throughout this whole saga of the first season of the series, and we went to Collingwood, the whole season is in this convent. And what happens in the story is, and what happened in real life, is that I had borrowed my parents' car to go up there, because I have a little truck and not everything would fit in it. And I returned the car to my parents. Well, about 2 weeks after getting back from the hunt, my parents called and said, listen, get that group up here. There's something in this house. We cannot, you got to get it out. We're losing keys. We're losing coats. The lights are going off. There's bats in the house. You got to get up here. So we went, and I had a big, very intense connection with a sister named Sister Madeline. We found out her name was Madeline. And that we ascertained through basically a hunt at my parents' house, that she was at my parents' house. And so we talked about how do you get a nun back to a convent and get her out of my parents' house. So we and then I tried to talk to her. I said she couldn't come with me, and she stopped talking. It's very amazing what happens with those dowsing rods. So eventually we conceded as a group. I said, you know what? Here's the deal, Madeline. You can come home with me for a night, okay? I'll show you my life, and then we're going to take you back to the convent tomorrow. So I said, okay, come along. Got in the car, came back. I came back here, actually poured a glass of wine, cooked some pasta, and I said, here, enjoy this. I'm sure, lit a candle. I said, I'm sure you used to love candles, blah, blah, blah. I felt absolutely nothing. So when I went to sleep, I turned on the recorder. I said, maybe we can know each other better. And I went to sleep. I got up in the morning. We actually drove back to the convent, presuming that she's with us, and took her back to the convent. Mm-hmm. And I didn't feel a thing. I have a little dog that's very sensitive. Nothing. I didn't feel a thing, didn't hear a thing. So I got home and started listening to EVPs. There is a stunning EVP of Madeline walking around my house for a minute and a half. This isn't a 5-second EVP. You can hear her. It sounds like she's in slippers. You can hear her walking and pacing and stopping and pacing. It is profound. There's nothing else that could have made the sound in this house. And it staggered me. And then to sort of know that you're asleep and someone's, walking around your
Walking
house
around
the
in
whole
your
time.
house. Right.
Yeah, but it comforted me because in her footsteps you can hear like she's pacing and she's looking and she just doesn't know what to do. And you figure this could have been a young woman that went to a convent in Toledo. She may have never been out of Toledo, and this was a major adventure for this entity, and she just was here and just didn't know what to do. And we are actually going back to Collingwood on June 29th. As a group. So it'll be interesting if we can connect with Madeline again. But particularly, we've had a lot of EVPs, and we had some GeoBox. We actually got to use the GeoBox the last time at Licking County. And we got some incredible, it's like a spirit box. I mean, it's live. From there, I had a little video of that. But those two EVPs, we had a lot of others. And they're just so profound that you don't have to listen hard for them. They're right there, and it's really profound, and it's wonderful evidence. Of course, people think you can doctor those audios, whatever, but I will tell you, if you're there and then you come back and hear this, there's no refuting the proof of that. There just isn't.
Right. And, that's, as you said, it's really unnerving to go back, and listen to that, and know that somebody was, in your house walking around while you're asleep.
Yeah.
That's not something I would ever do is, deliberately invite somebody to come home with me. I work very hard to keep my house ghost free.
Now, can I say something about that?
Sure.
Yes, and it's funny because I actually have an argument on camera with Katie because Katie always wanted to take entities home, and I would say, absolutely not. You can't invite entities into the car. You can't do that. I mean, I was adamant about this, absolutely adamant. This was one of our rules. And the only reason I ultimately did it, and we decided as a group to do it, is number one, I had connected with Madeline so much that we had all really ascertained this was not a malicious entity at all. And this was a way to get her back. And it seemed to be the only way to get her out of my parents' house at that time. We've never done it since. I never have now. So everybody's like, well, you did it. And I said, well, this was an extreme circumstance. But we had the same rules. And I would dictate to people all the time. It's like we would burn sage in the car. When I got to my door after a ghost hunt, I will say, you are not allowed in here. There are no. So we went, that's not something, that was really an anomaly. We didn't normally do something like that. I hear you. I agree completely.
Yeah, that's, I work, like I said, I work very hard to keep my house ghost free, with sage and the salt and everything.
Yeah, me too. Yep.
And
yeah. I said, I don't need a whole house full of quarreling entities. That's life's hard enough. I don't need that.
Yeah. And yeah, that's amazing though. And it's cool that you guys are going back on June 29th.
Yeah. Very excited.
We've got about 2 minutes before our top of the hour break. What do you hope to accomplish when you go back?
Well, I would like to reconnect to Madeline again, but what I would like, I know Madeline's gone back and talked to everybody, but we would love to find a new queer entity that met, particularly a lesbian ghost that didn't feel free coming out the last time. That would be really nice if this adventure with us, she goes back and actually encourages other sisters to come out. We would love that. Because there's more than one lesbian nun at that convent. I know that for sure. So, that would be really fun.
Yeah, that would be fun. And, and it's, it kind of, makes me chuckle a little bit. When you say, that there's more than one lesbian nun at the convent because there's a lot of jokes and stories circulating, about, lesbian nuns, and the vow of celibacy.
Well, let me tell you something. In 450 AD, St. Augustine's sister was going into a convent, and St. Augustine himself basically wrote to her and told her to beware of lesbians. So this has been a long history of people knowing what's going on in convents, including St. Augustine.
Wow, that is crazy. And on that note, it is time for our top of the hour break. But when we come back, we're going to have more with Lori Gum from the Queer Paranormal Society. So stay tuned, folks. You're listening to Periscope Uncensored on WBHM Digital Broadcasting, and we will be right back after this message from NPR. Welcome back to Periscope Uncensored on WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Alabama. I am Clarissa Vasquez, and joining me at the helm this evening, of course, is the peanut butter to my jelly, Mr. Jax.
Hello, everybody.
Crikey, I used the pseudonym.
Oh, crikey. Shame on you.
Do you remember how long it took me when we were on the last network to stop calling you Joe and start calling you Jax?
Yes.
And now I've got to try to get back into the habit of calling you Joe, which I don't call you Jax when we're off the air.
No,
and
you
so
don't.
You would think it wouldn't be that difficult for me, but old habits die hard, I guess.
Well, that's all right.
So we've got a great guest on the line tonight. We're talking to Lori Gum from the Queer Paranormal Society, and a lot of really, really good information and stories is being shared tonight. And Jax, I think you had a question for Lori, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
Dang it,
Lori, there was a question that came in on the chat from Cuban. He wants to know if you use an SLS camera and if you had decent results with it.
No, we use a regular camera. I mean, we use a regular camera and light each other with flashlights. And one of the we have used infrared at different times. They're sort of night vision cameras. When we were actually shooting the show, which is why we initially started shooting, we just made a decision that we didn't want it to look, that sort of night vision, infrared, that sort of thing. So we decided to literally just shoot it. It's what are those little Zoom Pros, it's those little tiny cameras, I can't even think of the name of it. But shooting with that, that's really what we shot with. We light with flashlights. We do use infrared and sort of the night vision occasionally. We see with the night vision in particular that we can see orbs in a lot of circumstances that we couldn't see with the regular camera. But we're not real sophisticated camera wise. We just shoot it with I can't think of the name of that it's a little camera. They use them on skateboarders and skiers. And
like a GoPro.
The GoPro, that's what I'm trying to think of. Good Lord. That, and then, use some other larger format cameras, but it's just shot normally, more or less, all of the hunts that we've done.
Excellent.
That's really cool because a lot of the investigation organizations out there are, diehard infrared camera users, and a lot of organizations now are relying heavily, sometimes too heavily, on the SLS technology. I know my organization, we've got 3 SLS cameras, and I'm trying really hard to get my people to not rely as heavily on them because I don't believe they are as reliable as the TV shows would have you think.
Yeah, and we probably need to get more on that. Again, we've been, except for sort of, our director shooting this for this YouTube, the stuff we use. I mean, we're pretty low tech, and we also think a lot of gadgets and gear intimidate entities at the same time. And we also just, we're just careful about that. We have Michelle Apgar, which is one of the more recent additions to our group. She came on about 1.5 years ago. She's got a lot of, really had a huge collection of tools and instruments that we started to use a lot more. She's very familiar with all that. I'm not as familiar with that. I'm kind of old school about it. But I can see us certainly in the future going and trying these different, like I said, have you ever used a Geo box? Are you familiar with the Geo box?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, we went to Licking County Jail with that. And we had some marvelous results from the Geo box. Really, really quite amazing. I have some recordings of it. Really, really pretty incredible stuff.
Yeah, and that's a really interesting point that you brought up a minute ago about how sometimes the equipment, may intimidate the entities or people, that you're trying to interact with. I think that's something that a lot of investigators take for granted. They get so worked up, they have to have the latest technology, they have to have the latest gadgets to try to obtain their data. And, that is something that I often tell people, that there is nothing wrong with going old school.
And I'm going to tell you something else. You know what your best tool is? And I absolutely believe this wholeheartedly. Your best tool is one of the rules we initially had with community ghost hunts when we would go, bring all members of our community wanted to go. One of the rules was before you can ask a question of an entity, you have to share something about yourself first. And what we found, there was an amazing peripheral experience that happened. As a community, we would learn as much about each other as we did about entities. And this was pretty amazing. And I will say forever, your best tool is sharing something about yourself and making that entity comfortable. And the other thing, I watch some of these ghost shows, they'll spend all day wiring up this house, wiring this. How could that possibly make an entity comfortable to talk with you? Especially, this may be an entity that is not in any way really familiar with modern technology. How is that going? It's just a completely alien way to me of ghost hunting. It really is. I would not enjoy that at all. I would not enjoy that at all.
Right. No, and that's a really good point that you make up, and I may discuss that with my team and see if we can, start trying to implement that a little bit, that, in addition to having everyone introduce themselves, have somebody, start sharing, just a little piece about them, whether or not they're a parent or, or if they grew up near the investigation location or something like that, something relevant to the investigation
that
could,
yes.
That can, help build that bond. I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, and I think it really works. And it also, what we were looking at doing with this group too, it really was community building as much as something extraordinary happens. When you have a group of people coming together, the entities in that space have to feel that bond forming amongst us too. It's very comforting, and I think it is really encouraging for entities, to reach out and communicate with you. I think it's really we found it to be particularly effective. And I would just give you a story. A friend of mine who I actually did Pride with for like 6 years, he went with us once when we went to Licking County Jail, and we went around a couple times all night, and he shared. I learned more about him that night than I did with us knowing each other. We never talked about personal things or him remembering a Christmas or I knew him better at the end of the night than I had in the previous 6 years that I'd known him. It's a really holistic way of trying to communicate with other entities.
Yeah, definitely. And, and again, that's, I've been investigating ghostly phenomena for over 20 years, and that's not something that has ever occurred to me before, to share that, it's, and that's one of the things I like about doing this show is to, we learn different things from, what works and what doesn't work with different organizations and different investigators. And that, I've definitely learned something tonight. And I'm sorry, I cut you off when I was rambling.
No, I was interrupting. I'm sorry. One of the things we also do is explain each of the gadgets to the entity.
Mm-hmm.
This is an EMF. This is what this does, blah, blah, blah. This is the recorder. This is what we do with the recorder. So when we go in, we actually try to alleviate any fear of the equipment. And you know what? I don't think it's right to go in and record anybody that I'm not making them aware that I'm recording them. You know, if we're going to have respect, say, here we are, this is a camera, you can show us, here's an EMF, you can let us know your presence this way, or we have the EVP, let's explain how that works. So we're very cognizant about explaining what the equipment is too.
Right. And even going so far as to touch the equipment and touch the lights and say, these are just lights. See, I'm touching them. They will not hurt you. They will not burn you. They just allow us to know you're here and to hear you better and, things of that nature. Explaining the equipment is a really good idea.
Yeah, you're dead on. Here, this won't hurt you. We won't let this hurt you.
Right.
But I do, I think there is, and we discussed this in the group too, it's sort of it's an issue of consent too. We want them to consent to us recording them and know that is happening, especially with a camera. And especially with a audio recording. So, that's important to us too, that they're made aware of this. I mean, issues of privacy aren't any different because we're in, 2019 than we were in, 1820. So
right.
it's just, it's a sort of respect, I think, for the entity. It really is. I know it may sound ridiculous to people, but I'm I would be uncomfortable doing that any other way.
Yeah, definitely. And, remembering, we touched on, the kindness, but also, remembering your manners, saying please and thank you. And,
Yes.
asking them, may I please take your picture? Or
Yes.
if we do capture, some kind of video or audio data, thanking them for making their presence known or thanking them for their attempt to communicate, is going to make them more inclined to, converse or interact with us.
Well, sure, because I think we have to, what we consider particularly, and I think this is for all ghost hunters, we consider, let's say you take Madeline at the convent, Madeline, we may have been the first people that Madeline ever came out to. The
right.
courage that would take to do, and let alone, so let's say it's not even in sort of a queer context, just the courage for an entity to communicate with you. It is thanking them for that courage and thanking them for, the sort of honor and privilege of communicating with them. Again, I think you're right. It's just manners and it's respect, and it's just should be natural.
Yeah, absolutely. And, the behavior demonstrated on the television shows today, as opposed to 20 years ago when paranormal TV was, first starting to make its appearance, is awful, and it really demonstrates to new and wannabe investigators. They watch these shows and then they go and think that is an acceptable way to conduct themselves in a potentially paranormal situation, which is really, really sad.
It is. And I'm going to tell you something. Those kind of bullies are exactly the kind of people the queer community fear. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
It's that kind of aggressive and violent, and we as a community experience that very often. So I'm older. I've been out since I was 13 years old in 1978. You get that feeling. It's that violence of that in that way of ghost hunting. That's really, I won't watch them. I can't watch them. It makes me mad, and it makes me really uncomfortable. It really does.
Yeah, I stopped watching them a long time ago.
Dark entities are angry. No wonder they're angry when they come out. And you know what? The truth of the matter, I think that's the point. Then you're going to get something dramatic for TV if you provoke this. It's like, going in and poking a grizzly bear. Sooner or later, that grizzly bear is going to come after you. But, maybe there's not so many demons, just as really pissed off entities that you've been so rude.
Right. And in fact, our producer Kat mentioned that during one of our breaks.
Yeah.
When we were talking
right.
about, whether or not sexuality and personality transcend death. And if you're offended by someone being confrontational when you're alive, you're going to be offended by someone being confrontational after you've passed. And
that's right.
And on that note, it is time for our next break. But when we come back, we're going to have our final segment with Lori. So stay tuned. You're listening to Periscope Uncensored on WBHM Digital Broadcasting, and we will be right back. Welcome back to Periscope Uncensored on WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Alabama. I am Clarissa Vasquez, and riding shotgun this evening is the man formerly known as Jax, Mr. Joe White.
How you doing, everybody?
Now, I know, Joe, you have another question for Lori.
I do. On film, what's the most compelling thing that you've ever caught on film?
Again, with the series, I would think we do have, there's sort of we have one shot where you see sort of a light go by. It is pretty much, I'll still say, when I was interviewing Madeline that night in the convent, we did some sort of night vision and you can clearly see some orbs. That's great. But, we don't have the shadow dashing around the corner or anything like that. We never really caught, again, we caught the dowsing rods, EMF happening, all that kind of stuff. We caught the actual hunt itself. I don't think, we never really caught a sort of gotcha, image of any being or entity on film. That's come up pretty, and again, we haven't really focused on it. I maybe if we did, we would have. But again, I think we were more interested in filming the sort of entire the hunt experience than more so going after specific, catching entities on film.
Okay. We have a question from Jimmy. Do you guys think that anyone that has passed can be contacted, or more maybe just lost spirits per se?
Yeah, I think so. And I I'm still, I can honestly say I don't know. We've talked a lot about this. I think there is some kind of conditions that an entity somehow gets in between here and an afterlife or another world or whatever. And I think it is those entities in that condition that we can reach. One of the things we've never really done, and I've certainly never done, and I know that our most people in our ghost hunting group, at least they've never told me that they've done this. We've never tried to contact in that way deceased family members, and I don't think I would ever do that. Maybe we could contact them. There is lots of evidence that you can contact, deceased family members. I think that love connection goes on, and not to sound like, Celine Dion or anything. I do think the heart goes on, but I don't. I've seen more evidence of sort of, these beings maybe being caught somewhere, as opposed to just a general ability to contact anybody that has passed. But I don't know. I'm certainly not certain about any of those statements.
Okay, we got another question from Cuban. Does orb footage convince you, or do you think that orbs are just dust and bugs?
We have a lot of dust and bugs on film. There's no doubt about it. Again, that's one of the reasons that I think I'm less, convinced by sort of film evidence. I think it's a lot easier to be convinced by an EVP than I do what we think is an orb. Very often we sort of define orbs. Orbs will be going in the different direction of dust. You know, you'll see one purposely shoot, this happens in the Madeline sequence, purposely shoot diagonally and very directly. You can see its physical properties are different than dirt and dust, and that its movement is different than the other dust and dirt in the room. That's how I would identify an orb. But, you know, there's a lot of things in the air that we don't know about. I find it harder to prove an orb than I think, like, it's a lot less compelling than an EVP or something like that. I always doubt the orbs. I just always doubt the orbs.
Very cool. And Joe, I know you had another question for Lori about something that's coming up in April. Regarding a former president.
Yes. Well, yes. Like I said, I've just become aware of it in Ohio. This is very much a big sort of event. Is the Lincoln funeral ghost train. And Lincoln's funeral in April of 1865, came through Ohio, came through Columbus, and there has been many witnesses over these 150 years or more than that, of this ghost train going by on the railroad, and I just learned about this. I can't believe I didn't know about this before. But at one point in my life in Columbus, I was living in a warehouse. That's another story. And I lived about 30 yards from the railroad track where supposedly this funeral train went. I did not know this at the time, but I have these recollections of the train would roll by and the house would shake. It's not like you could miss the train. And I remember several times hearing a sort of odd, sound, not like a normal train sound, like a horn or whatever they toot on. And looking, and there was no train. So when I read this about this Lincoln ghost train, I got woozy. Like I felt something wash over me that I vaguely remember there being a couple of times, and I thought, oh my goodness. So April 29th, every year in Urbana, Ohio, April 29th, they come out to look for the ghost train. So I'm going to that on April 29th, and it's great because 90, 130, 150 people show up. Again, it's a community sort of hunt. I love community hunts where people meet people that they would have never met before. And it's the sense of celebrating history. It's celebrating the belief in something beyond ourselves. And I just can't believe I just discovered this. And I may have had some remote experience of this in the past. And I couldn't be more thrilled to go April 29th. I'll keep you posted as to what happens.
Yes, please do. Because, I majored in history in college, so I'm a huge history buff, and I had the pleasure and privilege of being able to go and do an EVP session at Ford's Theater where Lincoln was shot, and at the Peterson house where he actually passed.
Oh, my.
And
no, okay, we have to have a long – I was just there a year and a half ago, and I'm a huge Lincoln fan. Oh,
yeah.
Okay, you got to get EVPs at Ford's Theater.
Yeah, I got to do an EVP session at Ford's Theater and at the Peterson house.
Wow.
I didn't capture anything. I didn't get any audio data, that said that, President Lincoln was there at either place. It was a little disappointing, but at the same time, it was actually, kind of comforting, to know that his spirit is not lingering. As far as I was able to tell, his spirit isn't lingering at either location.
Well, and you think too that, how many people traipse in and out of there a day. It might be very hard for an entity to be able to stand that. You know what I mean? But how exciting. Wow. I had no idea. I'm just doing all this research on this Lincoln train now. And I've since I was 9 years old and I read Carl Sandburg's Lincoln, I've been hooked. So that's amazing to me. What a thrill to even just get to do that. Standing in the Peterson rooms, it's a profound experience. It is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's incredible. And I was also able to go and do EVP sessions at Mount Vernon.
I was just at Mount Vernon last April.
Yeah.
In Monticello. I went to Mount Vernon one day in Monticello. Okay, you and I have to start hanging out together. Where are you, Alabama? Because I want to go where you're going.
I am actually in Colorado, but I was in DC in October of 17, and we spent 10 days there. I was on History Geek overload. My traveling companion, who is one of my best friends, she thought I was going to do backflips in the Library of Congress. So,
wow. We went to every Smithsonian museum, and then to Mount Vernon and Monticello the next day, and it's an amazing experience. It really is.
Yeah. Well, we were there for 10 days, and 10 days was not enough to do DC.
Yeah. Definitely not.
It was
definitely
not. We even got to tour the West Wing of the White House, which not everybody gets to do. They only get to do, the other side, but we actually got to tour the West Wing. And so getting to see the Oval Office and the Roosevelt Room and everything, I was drooling.
Wow.
I think the presidential
that is amazing
housekeeping team had to come up, and mop up my drool after I went through.
Yeah, I'll bet. And again, I think you and I both, I find so often that my true interest in ghost hunting is history. And, that includes, like I said, our queer ghost hunting is so rooted in the history of, these venues and the people that lived before us, and those little lives that nobody knows about, those little lives full of courage, those little lives full of amazing experiences. And it's really profound to me to come at history in that way. It really is. It's very, that keeps compelling me to do this.
Yeah. And that's something you pointed out a couple of times during the show tonight, is how important it is to teach history. And, we as investigators, we have the unique opportunity to do that, combined with our research into paranormal phenomena. And, and again, learning where I live, was really big in the Wild West scene. 20 minutes from my house. 20 minutes from my house are the graves of gunslingers Doc Holliday and Kid Curry. So, and I have investigated, where they are buried. I do not believe Doc Holliday is there, but I do believe Kid Curry is there. I've actually got 2 separate recordings of 2 different times that I believe I captured him as a disembodied voice, not as an EVP, because we actually heard it at the time it was recorded. But, we do believe that we've captured Kid Curry on audio. Near where he is buried. And so you and I will sidebar sometime, and I'll tell you the story about Kid Curry for our listeners.
Would love that.
For our listeners that want to know about Kid Curry and how many times he was buried and dug up and reburied, you can you can go to Amazon.com and get my book, Ghost Hunting in Colorado, because the whole story is there in that book.
Wow. And what you're saying too, and I'd like to remind and commend you for this too, is that I think, as I said earlier, I think this is a fantastic way to get young people interested in history.
Absolutely.
It really is. And like I said, in response to our YouTube series, it was really people under 21 that were really responding to this and paying attention. We would, talk about, Stonewall and what happened and, all these sort of things and how people had to live and were put in insane asylums, for being gay. And, I don't know that a lot of our youth, whether they're LGBTQ or not, know that. And it's important they know that. And it's important they know the history of Colorado and all those lives that came before. So good for you. That's just excellent. It sums up.
Well, thank you. We've only got about 8 minutes left with you, Lori. So
sure.
We'll get started a little bit. Where can our listeners learn more about you? Where can they learn more about the Queer Paranormal Society, upcoming events, the research that you guys are doing, community involvement? Where can they find out more?
Well, we have had a little bit of a transition. You go to the Queer on Facebook. That's the number one place to get us now there. And you can communicate with Shane or I through all of that, and with our Queer Ghost Hunting group through that. And the YouTube series is Queer Ghost Hunters. There are actually two plus seasons. Again, the first season is sort of the whole Convent Madeline thing that I contributed to. I did not go on for the second season and the other ones. But you can get us through there, and you can see all of that. And again, Facebook would be the best way. We have had to move the original Ghost Hunting group from Stonewall, Columbus, because Shane and I no longer work there, sort of into our own organization in the Queer Paranormal. So we're sort of in transition of doing that. But you can reach either one of us or anybody. Our events are listed, all of that kind of stuff on Facebook.
Outstanding. So yeah, again, folks, go to Facebook, look up the Queer Paranormal Society. You can find out everything about what they're doing. Find their YouTube videos, watch the videos and see, the experiences that Lori has been talking about this evening.
It's all on film. Yes, it's all on film. Yep.
Yeah. And, and if
you'll see too, we have a lot of fun. We have a lot of fun on the series. It's not just, we have a lot of fun, because we're ourselves. The nice thing is that the director, this wasn't scripted. He let us be us. And we were all friends to begin with. So it's, a bunch of friends going out and ghost hunting, and we have a lot of fun. So it's kind of fun. We do a lot of it sort of tongue in cheek too. And I think you'll, not only will you enjoy it for ghost hunting, I think you'll enjoy it. I think it's entertaining, and it's a lot of fun actually too. We do a couple little things in it that are really fun.
Outstanding. And, folks, if you like the objective and the mission, that Lori has talked about tonight, get involved with your local LGBTQ organizations.
Yeah.
And, there may be other queer paranormal investigation organizations out there that haven't come to light yet, and, get in touch, make a connection, regardless of your sexual orientation. We're all people, we're all human. We all love, chasing the strange and unusual, and really, what's more strange and unusual than the LGBTQ community? Come on. I love the community.
I'm with you 100%. That's right. I joke in the series, someone's, I think Sue asked me on camera, I said, it's not just anyone that joins a queer ghost hunting group, and not even queers. It's a very particular kind of, queer person that does this. So, and yeah, do reach out to your local community centers, because I'll tell you something, once we kind of opened it up, we found out there were a lot of people who always wanted to do this, but they may have not felt initially comfortable going just sort of randomly into a ghost hunting group that didn't specifically welcome, queer people, because they want to be their authentic self. So just that reaching out from a ghost hunting group to a community center says you're welcome. And I think you would find an enormous response from that, because we certainly did.
Yeah, definitely. And if you're part of an LGBTQ, community, and you're interested in the paranormal, reach out, because a lot of investigation organizations, as we mentioned earlier, bullying, unfortunately, is still a thing, even in the 21st century. It's sad. But a lot of people, a lot of investigators have faced persecution on their own just because they're investigators. They've been chastised and ridiculed and called weird. And so
That's true.
Don't be afraid to reach out to your local investigation community and say, hey, I'd like to learn more, or, can you teach me? Or I've got this experience, can we work on this together? Because most investigation organizations, regardless, most of them will welcome you with open arms and say, yeah, come on, let's work together. Because a lot of organizations are about paranormal unity, and the ones that aren't, shame on you. And, tolerance and unity, that's the direction that we as a society need to head into in the 21st century, regardless of the circumstances or the situations. That's just all there is to it.
That's right. And we would have in our group, and especially when we had big community hunts, they bring their mothers, they bring their sisters and friends. It kind of ended up being a family thing too. So there is a mixture of straight people and queer people and all that kind of stuff. And we felt really good that everybody felt comfortable bringing friends and family and all that kind of stuff to do this. It was a compliment. It really was.
Yeah. Well, Lori, we want to thank you for being such a great guest on the show tonight. You guys are definitely on our radar, and you and I are going to have a sidebar conversation and talk about, some of our experiences and some of our adventures and stuff, because I think you're a history nut just as much as I am. And
absolutely.
So we definitely want to thank you for being a guest on the show, and good luck with your investigations and with your organization. And
thank you.
And definitely good luck in April. Hopefully you get to see the Phantom Train, and and good luck in June when you go back to the convent. So
you got it. We'll keep you posted. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I thank you so much for the opportunity just to share about what we're doing, and encourage other people to do so.
Definitely. And Lori, I'll be in touch for sure.
Fantastic.
Have
Thanks
a great
so much.
night. And on that note,
too.
folks,
Bye-bye.
it is time for our final break of the evening. But when we come back, Joe and I are going to be talking about some strange and unusual stuff. So stay tuned. You're listening to Periscope Uncensored on WBHM Digital Broadcasting, and we will be right back. Welcome back to Periscope Uncensored here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Alabama. I am Clarissa Vasquez, and at the helm with me, as always, is the man formerly known as Jax, Mr. Joe White, who I think is muted. Maybe not. I don't know. He could be attending to other business right now, though. He's here. Okay.
Hey, how you doing?
There you are. So, Lori Gum from the Queer Paranormal Society, she had some really cool insights as to how they conduct their research, and she really gave me some new ideas. What did you think about that?
I thought it was a brilliant interview. I thought that she very intelligent answers, and yeah, I agree with you 10,000%.
Yeah, I like her concept, and we touched on this during the last segment. I like her concept about sharing a little piece of personal information during an investigation, to help build that rapport with whomever you're trying to connect with.
Yeah.
And and she and I are definitely going to have to stay in touch, because she struck my history nerve, and we've been to some of the same places, and she even said she was going to buy at least one of my books. So because she mentioned the Lincoln train, and I actually wrote about that in my book, Phantom Trains and Haunted Rails of the U.S., which is available on Amazon if you don't have it. Joe, I know you have all of my books, but for our listeners that don't, you can learn more about Lincoln's Ghost Train and some other really, really cool, haunted trains or haunted railways in that book. It's available on Amazon, called Phantom Trains and Haunted Rails of the U.S. by Clarissa Vasquez. So you can actually find all 6 of my books on Amazon if you go to Amazon.com and just type in my name. That's Clarissa with 1 R and 2 S's, and Vasquez is Vazquez. It's that easy. And I know Brenda in the chat room has read, I think she's read my 2 fiction books, because I saw her reviews on Amazon. So definitely thank you, Brenda, for obtaining my books and leaving the reviews. And folks, if you have my books, hop onto Amazon and leave a review, because the more reviews a book has, even if you just put, I liked this book, that's actually going to get my books higher up the search engine list. So, when people go, looking for ghost books and stuff, the more reviews I've got, the higher I'll pop up on those searches. So that helps me a lot. And authors are actually considered to be small businesses because, a lot of people don't realize this, but when you're an author, you don't make a lot of money. Unless you're like Stephen King or Dean Koontz or, you have to sell millions of copies in order to, make millions of dollars. And, really for every book that we sell, we only make a couple of bucks. Seriously, no joke. We only make a couple of dollars per copy. So, so it really helps us out, to have our books listed higher up on search engines so that more people can access them. So if you've got one of my books, leave a review on Amazon. Helps me out. Support your local small business and support your starving artist who has to, moonlight as a radio host.
Are you saying that if you were making money writing books, you wouldn't be a radio show host?
Oh, I would still be a radio show host. Yes.
There you go.
I would, because I love doing radio. I do. I wouldn't have been, driving like a bat out of Hades to get home tonight, so that I could be on the air in time if I didn't enjoy doing this.
I knew it. I knew it. I knew it.
Nothing.
I knew you did that. Uh-huh. Right. Mm-hmm.
I wasn't driving 75 in the rain. No.
No, you were driving 80.
No, I actually wasn't. It was all I could do to go 75 because it was raining. But yeah, no, I enjoy, being on the radio. I enjoy being part of the WBHM family, and I love doing Periscope Uncensored, with the best co-host I have ever had.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate that.
You're welcome. So, and Brenda posted in chat room that she can verify I am a very good writer. So,
yes.
I think you can attest to that too, since you have all 6 of my books.
Yes, but at the same time, I'm still trying to figure out, because I know that your last book that you and Chris Carr wrote together.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still trying to decipher who wrote what.
And that's the
tell.
funny thing. Chris and I work so well together, and we've got very, very similar writing styles. There are parts of that book that I cannot tell who wrote what. We started that project a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
And, of course, I've slept for a couple of minutes since then. And, so there are sections of that book where I have forgotten, who wrote what. And because our writing styles are so similar, you really cannot tell who wrote what. It's really cool. It's like one person wrote the whole thing. So, and we've got other book projects in the works. We haven't worked on them for a while, but Chris and I do have other projects in the works.
Cool.
Yeah. So, and if I can ever, like I said at the beginning of the show, I'm waiting for Reverend Sean Whittington's book to arrive so I can read it and decide if I need to adjust my manuscript or scrap the manuscript or continue as planned, with my Ghosts in the Bible project. It's going to be interesting to see what happens with that, because we, you don't want the same book written by, two different authors out there. That just doesn't do anybody any good. It just saturates.
Maybe not, because it could be a different take.
It could be a different take. And so that's why I'm waiting to, for his book to arrive in the mail, and so I can read it and find out what it's all about, and see if I'm still on the right track, or if I need to adjust, or if I just need to scrap it. And who knows, maybe there are parts of his book, that I can quote in mine. So we'll see. So let's see. Who do we have coming up next week, Joe? You knew I was going to ask that.
Yeah. Who do we have next week?
I'm looking right now. I hope I've got it posted to Facebook, because that's where I'm looking. There we go. Scheduled posts. No, I don't have it posted. Okay, so let me go to the calendar. Of course, I wouldn't look on the right page, would I? I know we're booked all the way into May now. So we've got some good guests coming up. Okay, next week, we've got Elite Paranormal Society coming up. And then that's going to be on Thursday, March 28th at 9 p.m. Eastern here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting. And then on April 4th, we're going to have Rick Peterson on the show. Now, for people like Jax who have been listening to the show almost since its inception, we had Rick as a guest. He's the founder of Spirits BC, which is an investigation organization out of British Columbia. And we actually had Rick on the show about 6 years ago. So it's been a long time since we've talked to Rick Peterson. So it's going to be really cool to see what he's been up to in the 6 years since he was last a guest on Periscope.
Wow. That was a long time ago.
Yeah. Do you remember when we had him on 6 years ago?
I don't, because I only started listening to Periscope 5 years ago.
5 years ago. Okay. Okay. Yeah. So this will be new for you. And so Rick's coming up in 2 weeks. Next week we're going to have Elite Paranormal Society as a guest on the show. So that's going to be a lot of fun. Yay! So, and we should have more information about the upcoming investigation that CCPI is doing at the Frontier Historical Museum. We have actually discussed with the museum staff, and it's going to be presented to the board of directors here really soon, setting up a live webcam on the museum's website, setting up a live continuously running ghost cam in different parts of the museum, so that people can, hop onto the museum's website, and see if there's anything going bump in the night. We're talking to them about that. I think that's going to be a really cool new addition for the museum to implement. And then, of course, we're going to start our regular public investigations at the museum here really soon. So lots of cool things going on with CCPI right now.
Awesome.
Yep. And so on that note, we've come to the end of our show.
Ooh.
I know. Time flies when you're having fun. But we want to thank everybody for tuning in tonight. And we want to thank Lori Gum and the Queer Paranormal Society for being such a great guest on the show. And again, go to their Facebook page, Queer Paranormal Society, go to their YouTube channel, check out what we've been talking about tonight on the show, because there's a lot of really good information, and it's a really great way for people with diverse backgrounds, to be involved in paranormal investigation, which I think is fantastic. So, for Joe, Kat, the WBHM family of hosts, and myself, want to wish everyone a great evening, and may all of your ghosts be friendly.
Stay spooky, everybody. Have a good night.